morning. How are we all doing today?
Good.
It's
Good.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's that busy.
It's actually like one more day to go. I actually just picked up an email where someone's like, let's connect on Friday. And I was like, no.
Wait.
Holiday.
Not this week.
No.
Yeah.
So we're almost there. One more day to go.
I did not think of that. I completely forgot that we're gonna have an extended weekend.
We've got like Monday off as well. Did anyone tell you that as well?
Yeah, it's like extended 4-day weekend.
I don't want to
Love
sound
it.
really negative, but it always annoys me when that happens. I've got so much to do. My wife's like,
I know.
what are we doing for Good Friday? I'm like, can't I just work there? I've got lots to do. So no, we've got to spend time with your children. Remember your children? Oh God.
Yeah, then
James, as a resident burnout expert, sustainable success requires rest, and rest takes many forms.
I love it. I know that. I'm tracking my sleep at the moment. I've got my Fitbit back on. I'm tracking my sleep and my sleep score. So yeah, I've got 3 children as well. So yeah, I don't get any rest, which is exciting.
amazing. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the third and final session of Module 4 with James. Before I hand over to James, I just wanted to do a quick housekeeping about the module task, which James will touch on anyway, and he has touched on in the past 2 sessions. After this session, you are free to do your task, and you will have 2 weeks to complete it as always. Where you can find the task is in the courses section of Accelerator app. It's a little bit different, this task, because instead of it being a written task, you will be recording yourself answering the 2 questions that James has mentioned, which is, what do you do and how do you do it? Right, James?
That's right.
Cool.
Correct.
So you'll be recording yourself doing answering those 2 questions in under a minute, and then you'll be uploading it to the Google Drive, as usual with the other tasks as well. We usually leave it up to the facilitators on whether they want to provide feedback or not, but James has said that he is kindly giving feedback for everyone who submits their task for this module. So yeah, hopefully that will prompt you guys to do the task so that you can get some feedback from James on how you've done. So yes, you can find the task in the courses section of Accelerator app, upload it to Google Drive, and it will be sent to James, and he will be providing feedback for everyone who submits. And that's it from me. That was kind of the little bit of housekeeping on the task, and I will hand over now to James for the last session.
Thank you very much. The last session. This is it. You nearly got rid of me. Right. I'm just going to share my screen. Do you know what? I'm not even going to ask you if you can see that. I'm just going to presume you can. We'll see. If you can't, and I start talking, then you'll complain, won't you? But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give feedback to every person. So once you've submitted it, I will look at it and I'll give you constructive feedback on that. And arguably, that's the most important part of all of this. So yes, it's interesting to hear me talk about all things we've got to do and this and that. But the only way you get the value from this stuff is when you take action, you give it a shot, however good or bad you think it might be, give it a shot. I can give you feedback, because this stuff only has value when we use it in the real world. So as much as I can say about the value loop and all this crazy stuff and blind this perfect world setting, it's only when you can actually do this stuff in real life that you'll get the real value from it. So please take the time to do the task, and I will take the time to review it for you. Okay, it's been an emotional 3 days. First of all, we covered communication basics. Yesterday, we looked at some common challenges. Today, we're looking at some assets to create, some things that I suggest you have up your sleeve. Hopefully you've got big sleeves. But just to recap, so on Monday, this is what we looked at first of all. So, yesterday, this is what we looked at. Having a large complicated offering, justifying the price, having an intangible offering, getting over that nice to have where everything's great until you ask for money and nobody's interested in talking to you anymore, and getting over this DIY, stopping people trying to do it themselves. Any questions or revelations or challenges or anything from yesterday that you want to raise at this point? Because I'm aware we literally got to right to the end of the session and that was it. There wasn't too much time for questions. But was everybody with me, or was there anything that was particularly kind of challenging for you?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
One thing was a revelation, the whole buyers want details and non-buyers want space. I really appreciated that, the whole don't replace instead of chase.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the question, it's always into it falls with me. So The proposal, we spoke about sending it after verbalizing the price and so forth in the meeting. But ahead of them booking a meeting, they've done the intake form. Would it be worthwhile sending over a list of your services, a very high level list that as an immediate download that they have access to ahead of this call, or should everything be left till you have that face to face?
I would say for me, and again, this comes back to what feels right for you. My personal view on this is I would get them to fill out the questions, but wait until the call. If you want to send them anything, I wouldn't send them a list of the things that you offer. I would send them a list of the problems and challenges that you solve so they can identify that. So these are the main problems and challenges that we solve. And there's, hopefully a handful, not 27,000 of them. So here they are, because from that, that's going to reaffirm. So if I'm saying to you, I help to simplify complex offerings, differentiate in a crowded marketplace and justify the price, and you've booked a call because you're finding it hard to justify the price, it reaffirms, okay, cool, he knows what he's doing, we're going to be able to cover that. And this is destination journey stuff that we're selling here. So this just reconnects to what they really want, because respectfully, nobody wants your products and services. They want what that means for them that they're after.
Yeah.
So if you want to send anything, I'd send that. But also just be aware that you don't want to overload people. And also, as much as you'll send it to them, they may never read it. It's a bit like that minimum pricing thing we spoke about.
Yeah.
How many emails do we get that we don't actually read at all or properly? Yeah, most of us, right? Some of them might even be MSDUK emails. Shh. But it happens, right? This is who we are. So just be mindful of that. As much as you've sent something to somebody, they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't get a chance to read that. Could you tell me what's in it? And they want you to do the heavy lifting anyway. But cool.
Okay,
but yes,
thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, don't chase them, replace them. Funnily enough, that's inspired by a rap lyric. But don't chase them, replace them is a really cool thing to remember. If you're stuck in that trap of, oh, I've only got 5 potential people I'm talking to, blah, blah, blah. Just empower yourself to open some new conversations. You'll feel a lot better about everything. And buyers want details, non-buyers want space. Absolutely. If somebody's not being specific with you, and the classic one for me is, can you send me some information? Anybody had this? So people go, oh, can you send me some information? And have you just sent the information to them and then never heard from them again? That's generally what happens. Can you send me some information is often that polite brush off, because we've done that to people ourselves. If somebody asks you that, the answer to that is absolutely, Sunny, I could do that for you. What is it you'd like to know more about? Because then if you're specific with me, oh, I'd like to know about the pricing and the timing and blah, 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 awesome. It shows me that there might be some interest there. Buyers want details, non-buyers want space. If you say, oh, I don't know, just send me what you've got, I'll have a look at it. Interesting. I'll put you in the more unlikely pile. But we're so quick to end conversations, end calls, and end things and get off the phone. We don't know better, so to speak, that we don't do that. Can you send me some information? Yeah, absolutely. What's your best email, Sunny? Okay, yeah, there we go. I'll send it across to you. And I don't know if you're interested or not. Whereas if I say, what would you like to know? So I'm not really sure how long it takes to create a clear sales message. Great, I'll send that across to you, but I'll just tell you that now as well, blah, blah, blah. Then I know you're probably more interested than not. Awesome. Okay, so that was what we covered yesterday. And Shazida, if you can keep an eye on the chat for me as well, if anybody puts anything in there, because it's really hard for me to multitask as a man. It's impossible, basically. And just to recap on Monday, so this is what we covered on Monday. This is how this whole journey started, where we spoke about what selling was. And from my point of view, it's just communication. And when we look about it as communication, we can reduce some of our fear and apprehension around it. Is anybody actually quite nervous about selling? Anybody kind of not really sure? And you put off cold calling and emails and things like that. It's quite a common thing to be afraid of selling. And what that comes down to is that notion of feeling like we have to behave in a certain way and do certain things. If you focus on selling as communication, so if we behave as a spokesperson rather than a salesperson, we're more likely to do well because there's less pressure. We're just focusing on having a great conversation and connecting with people rather than just trying to push them and make the sale, as it were. We looked at what you're selling, the destination. I'll cover this on the calls I have with you, but is anybody really struggling with this? What's the actual destination with their offering? What are people actually buying? Anybody just finding this really impossible to work out? And I'll just leave an awkward pause there for a second for anybody to raise their hand or talk. Okay. If you are and you don't want to talk about it now, no problem. Book a call with me and we can cover it. But that's pivotal. Once we get that nailed, everything else becomes a lot easier. who you're selling your stuff to and when. So that trigger point. Again, if you're struggling with that trigger point, unmute yourself now. We can have a chat about that. If not, we can book a call. Why anybody should care. So since I told you off on Monday, let's be honest, it was a telling off. Has anybody actually started to try and get some social proof, some evidence from existing clients? Anybody actually done that just yet? I can see Sunny nodding. This is good. Thanks, Sunny. At least one person did something I asked them to do. Just kidding. This week, I think I've had about 3 or 4 new LinkedIn recommendations. So it's like a continual cycle for me. So I'm looking to sell stuff to people, but I'm also looking to top up kind of my bank of proof and evidence. Both of those should be spinning and growing all the time. So try and make that a part of your everyday activity where possible. Trust me, it will pay dividends. And the final thing, and we'll cover this in a bit more detail today, is your process of working, articulating how you do what you do. I've got some examples today of how you can name your process of working and how you can visualize it. So we'll talk about that a little bit more and hopefully workshop any problems that you've got. So I'm presuming there aren't any questions or revelations or anything so far. So I will move forward. Today we're talking about assets to create. Excuse me. And this is what we're going to cover. Now, I know we talk about pitching and how to pitch and whatnot. That's coming for you in the next stage of what you're up to with MSDUK. But I like to share my approach to it as well. A, because it covers some of the really important assets of your messaging that you just should have in place anyway. And B, so it just reaffirms this whole notion of the value loop and talking about the right things at the right time in the right order. We'll cover the what do you do template again, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll finish up with talking about how you do what you do. And there's lots of different ways to visualize that. So if we start with the perfect pitch, this is my low resolution diagram for that. I'm having my branding done this year, so be kind. This will change, but you may never see it. Sorry about that. But this is my process for a pitch deck in particular. So like a document or a presentation that you're going to give. How do we structure it? And where do we start? And what do we talk about first? Now, one of the most common problems people have when they're selling or communicating is, how do we start the conversation? What do we talk about? I always like to start with the problem that somebody's facing or the challenge, what they actually want. So if this was a call between me and Shazida, I would say, Shazida, tell me more about where you are right now and what you're trying to achieve. I get her to talk first of all. Has anybody read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Well, most people are aware of that book. Has anybody actually read it and understood it? No? Well, I was going to say definitely read it. I'm just going to spoil it for you and tell you what it's all about. Read it if you want. It's a great book, one of the classics. But basically, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If I talk about you and pay attention to you and care about you and make you my priority, guess what? You're going to like me and you're going to be more receptive to the things that I'm asking you to do. That's it. So if we start with, hey, Sunny, tell me about the challenges you're facing. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, and so that probably means you've got this problem, right? Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking about things that matter to you in terms of you understand. I'm focusing on you. I'm not just steaming in with, hey, I can sell you something. This is great. You're more inclined to like me and feel valued and appreciated. And it goes back to that Curry's PCL thing of being in control. If I'm asking really good questions and focusing on you, you don't feel like you're not in control of the situation. Quite the opposite. So for any sales conversation, presentation, anything, I always start with, what's the problem? And the first 4 stages of this pertain to the value loop, which we covered yesterday, which was this way that we can turn a conversation on its head softly so nobody realizes what's going on and start to talk about money to commercialize. So how this works, just to recap, I will be in conversation with Shazida, for example, and I say, oh, can I just stop you there and repeat back what you've told me so I can make sure I've understood it? She's obviously going to say yes. It's a bit like, can I go to the toilet? Nobody's ever said no. Like, what do we do? It's never happened. So yes, of course, she can repeat back to me. This way I get it right. So I know exactly that I've understood correctly and I haven't actually made any mistakes. I'm also making her feel important because I'm putting the focus on her, but then I'm also confronting her with her terrible reality. But, not in a way that we're trying to manipulate her or coerce her, but facts are facts. And it goes back to that. You can either join the gym or you cannot. But if you don't join the gym, things aren't going to improve, are they? And we should probably just make you aware of that. So this is where you are right now. This is where you want to be, as I understand it. And again, so I can get it right, show her that I care about her and I was paying attention, but also to paint that sexy, attractive, amazing future that she wants, and really put her, if you remember the picture of selling the destination, not the journey, that advert, really put her on that beach with the sunshine, get her to feel that, like, wow, what would it be like if we could do this, or when that would happen? That would be cool, right? Awesome. How we'll get you there is creating a clear sales message. And I suggest we do this because this, and that will help with that. And this, what that means is that. So I'm going to take all the stuff that I'm going to offer, but completely, I make great gesticulations on these calls. They change all the time. I'm going to attach what I'm selling to what they need, like this, rather than just saying, this is what we do, which is kind of what we were talking about in that email. If I just say, here's our list of services, then we miss that. If I say, here's what we do and here's how it links to what you need, that's more compelling because I'm doing the thinking, connecting for you ultimately. Then I'm going to talk about the price and what it costs. And then I'm going to be quiet and say, how does that sound to you? And wait for you to talk. And when it comes to the price, for me personally, verbalizing it is always more effective than just sneaking it in on an email and hoping for the best, because that's massively increases your chances of being ghosted. You can sell to people that way. It does happen. But the chances of you being ghosted and people disappearing are very, very high, because they'll just look at the price, ignore all the beautiful things you said in your message and proposal, and draw their own conclusions. Does anybody have any real difficulty with actually talking about the price because it's just nigh on impossible to even give a ballpark? Or is everybody okay with verbalizing the price? Obviously, you'll have to give it a go and make sure you feel okay with it. But is anybody that's sitting there thinking, I can't actually do this, James? This is too perfect world. If only life was that easy. Anybody got that problem?
Yeah.
Talk to me. Oh, as I re-stick
Although,
my
if
thing.
there's anyone else who wants to speak up, I literally can't see anyone else's camera.
Keep you talk. Anybody else can interrupt you or
Okay.
raise their hand or put something in the chat, and we'll find them.
Awesome.
Don't worry.
So the thing is, I have a range of prices. So generally speaking, what I'll do is I know what the minimum price is for, let's go with the keynotes. I know what the minimum rate is, but in the past, I've asked people what their budget is, because then I find that varies. So for the same talk, I can get in the low few thousands up until like 5 figures. The same talk, depending on what that person's budget is. So sometimes I find it difficult to navigate the conversation between saying, look, this is what the minimum fee is, depending on what you want. But then at the same time, I've also had other people teach me not to leave money on the table. So keep that question open-ended. Yeah. And it has worked out my benefit. As I said, from the same talk, I was able to get 5,000 more just for the same service. But I don't know how to confidently navigate that conversation yet because of conflicting views, ideas, and opportunities being lost.
Okay, so what we could do there is to give that ballpark figure or specific figure. There's certain things you need to know, right? Number of people attending, duration of talk, and other factors. There's other factors that you would have taken into consideration before you added that additional $5,000 to that talk that you did, right?
Oh, I never added it. They quoted it, and I said, "Yeah, I'm happy to work within your budget." And it just said,
"Oh, they said the budget." Oh,
yeah,
okay,
they
cool.
said it. I never actually gave. I said, "What's your budget?" And she said it. And I went, "I'm happy to work within that." And it was literally triple what I would normally charge.
And you're trying to play it cool. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. That'll be fine. Yeah.
I was
Thinking about your holiday you're going to plan. Awesome. So what I would say there is, this is where you are. This is where you want to be. This is how we get you there. Now, before we get to cost, what kind of budget do you have? Maybe just front end it with that. If this is an issue that you're having, ask them first of all, what kind of budget? What are you expecting to pay for this? And if they tell you, then you're still in that position that you were before. And if they don't tell you, then you can lead with what you've got. I think that's probably the best way to solve that situation. But most of the time, really, from my experience, people are very cagey. Everybody has a budget. Always, always, always. They know what they can spend. Absolutely. They just don't want to share it with you because they're nervous that what you're going to say is going to perfectly match what they've got or be like a penny under or whatever. So that's why people are cagey about it. So have you got a budget? We can talk about that. If not, I'll just let you know approximately what this would cost. And again, go back to yesterday, I don't like the word the investment would be. And I think we had pretty much consensus on that. So yes, we invest in things, but if you call cost investment, I think it's just one of those things that gets people's back up. They're like, oh, it's going to be expensive then, is it? And we tell them the price, and price is fact, not emotion. So the price is £5,000. £20 million, 50 pence, whatever. That's a TV, that's a monitor, that's a cup of coffee, that's the price. So we just try and explain the price just as a descriptive value without putting our emotional kind of thought into it. We don't want to put any of our energy into that price, because that's when we have, it's 20, any kind of thing like that just communicates that I think this is expensive, or well,
Okay.
I wouldn't pay this. So the price is a fact. And I recognize completely on this call, very easy for me to say that, very difficult to do in real life, but just for the first time that you do it, if you can keep your resolve and just keep eye contact with them and say, the price would be blah, how does that sound to you? And just try and stay cool as a fan, like you were when the price went up $5,000 and you're secretly planning a holiday and you stayed okay. Just channel that into the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
You are welcome. Cool. So that is the value loop. And it's a loop because when we say, how does that sound? They might say, well, actually, James, it's too expensive. I don't have this problem. I do want this, blah, blah. We can use it to go around again, but it makes it's far more conducive than, so you probably wonder what I charge, or let's talk commercials, or anything else that just changes the conversation and puts you in that Curry Species world. Hey, can I help you? Like, no, I'm fine. Thanks. I don't want this. So you still feel in control with this as a buyer, and you are really, aren't you, as a buyer? But we're talking about price last and value first, which again is that syntax, that ordering thing. We're talking about the most important things first for the buyer. Okay, so what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is you probably can't define the problem to me. So, and again, I won't pick on anybody because I hate it when people do that and it doesn't work. But in your heart of hearts, if I said to you now, Shazida or Sunny or whoever, what are the problems that you solve? Could you define them? Could you tell me the 2, 3, 4, 5 principal problems that your service or product actually solves? For most people, it's very difficult. You know what this is, but can you tell me in a concise way? So for me, it's simplifying complex offering, justifying the price, differentiating in a crowded marketplace. I nearly forgot it then. That would have been embarrassing. So it's those three things: simplifying, justifying, and differentiating. Those are the three problems I solve. There's a lot more things that I do, but I tend to talk about those three things for clear sales message. My ability to do that then allows me to connect with you and say, well, actually, I think, Sunny, your issue here is simplifying your complex offering because we're using technology here in what you're doing. So that's your biggest challenge. Am I right there? That's far more conducive than, do you want a clear sales message? So we're just connecting everything together. So we start with, what's the problem? Defining the problem that the person is facing and the problems that you solve also. So if this were an actual kind of slide deck or presentation, for example, we'll start with the problem. So Stanley, from my understanding, I'll use as my example, if you don't mind, Stanley, but I'll make up some wacky business that you do. So from my understanding, you've got this great new technological product that does blah, blah thing. And, you've got patents, you've got this, you've got that, and you've actually started to get buyers. It's awesome, but you're really struggling with a name for the technology first and foremost. And it takes far too long for people to actually understand just how brilliant this is. Is that the problem you're facing? That's literally how I'd start that presentation. This is the problem I perceive that you have because I've done my homework and I've spoken to you. Boom. When you think about the problems that we solve, generally we can categorize them into a certain number of things. So we could be diagnosing things. We could be helping you to avoid things, minimize things, solve them. I'll read them all anyway. You've read ahead of me. I know you have. Improve, maintain, creating something, learning something, providing opportunity or advantage. So if you're not sure on the problems that you solve, this is a little prompt to help you to understand, because not everything is as cut and dried as we'd like it to be. But being able to articulate the problem or problems that you solve, but not having tons, we want maybe 4 to 5 maximum. The principle I have here with kind of keeping things concise is, if you couldn't remember it and tell me without checking notes or PowerPoints or pull up banners or anything, it's probably too long. That's what I'm looking for, because if it's too long for you to remember, it's definitely going to be too long for your client to remember too. So we'll talk about the problem that we solve. And then we talk about, and you'll notice here we're following this this value loop, right? This is the problem you have. This is where you want to be. So what's the end result? And this is the destination. So we understand that you've got this issue with the technology and people don't understand about, etc. What you'd really like is for people to instantly understand this, for the actual name of your product to become eponymous, to become the thing. So in the same way we don't search, we Google, wouldn't it be great if for your product we blah and it becomes like the active verb for this thing? That would be awesome, wouldn't it, Sunny? Amazing. That's what we're looking to do for you. So I paint this exciting, sexy picture of what you want and try and make it as contextual as possible and try and connect to the emotions and thoughts and feelings of the buyer, the person. And if you deal with blue chip companies and B2B, etc., when you deal with people, you deal with emotions. So there will always be something there. I made this point yesterday and the day before, and funnily enough, I looked at my own Amazon order history to work out what was logical and what was emotional. And yeah, a lot of emotional spending going on for me this week, but that's another story. Then we look at the solution. So this is how you do what you do. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later in today's session. But for me, having an articulated process of working, a named process of working, and something that is visualized. So if we have all those elements, you're in the best position to succeed. Most people don't have a succinct articulation of how they do what they do. Obviously, they know how it works, but it's the succinctness that really matters. And then if they can describe it, is there a name for it? And is there a visual? Because when you get all three, and I've got examples of how to name it today with some real specific templates you can use, and also how to set the visual. This is important. And for the video challenge, if you want to show me a visual in your video, then by all means do so. It's not necessarily what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is kind of the verbalization of this is how we do what we do. So having a name for it and having a visual are great, but on the module task in particular, nearly called it the challenge. It's like a game show for the challenge. Just the verbalization of what you do. So to give you an example, for me, when I introduce myself, I say, hi, I'm James. I teach people how to sell. For me, it comes in two parts. So this is how I do what I do. The first part is having a clear sales message, being able to articulate your offering so people understand it. The second part is developing what I call selling confidence, which is the behavioral side of selling. Another way I express this is clarity of message plus confidence of delivery equals conversion. So if you have any issue with converting people and selling to people, either you're not very confident when you're talking to them. Here's another of those weird gesticulations. You're not very confident when you're talking to them, or you don't have a clear sales message and people don't understand it, or maybe even a bit of both. And I express my process of working in this regard as a mathematical equation. So this plus that equals that, because if you remove something, it literally doesn't add up. And if I can identify to you that there's two main elements, being confident, being clear, and you know damn well that you're not confident and or you're not clear, I'm also communicating to you that I understand you and I can help you. My ability to articulate the challenge that you're facing indicates to you my ability to solve the challenge that you're facing. Does that make sense? So if I can describe the challenges that you're facing in detail, and that you're like, oh my God, he gets me, he understands it. It tells you that I know how to solve it. The problem most people have is they're really good at what they do. Of course they are. That's why they're in business. But because they can't communicate it in a clear, kind of compelling way, which is the sell the destination, not the journey stuff, we focus on the wrong things. Because I can't do it in a compelling way, you're not sure if I can help you. When I know I absolutely can. Sunny.
Hey, can I ask you a question? I'm taking some notes as in trying to answer the questions, and I've just stumbled upon something where I've put the same answer in both areas. Like, what's the problem I solve? And I put something in there about helping to define your proposition. So I've used the word, like you said, simplify, justify, differentiate, and I put myself down as I define. But what's the solution? And I thought, well, hold on, I uncover, define, and create. So I can't have define in both areas. Is that a common thing?
So don't get too hung up on the specifics here. It is a common thing because these things are two sides of the same coin. So I guess with the problem is you struggle to define it. So the solution is we help you to define it. So that there's no problem that we've got the continuation of the word there. All I would say is when you're talking about how you define it, could you articulate, approximately what that looks like? So when I started Clear Sales Message, and I'm the first to recognize that even 5 years in, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still happy for feedback. I love it. It's exciting. But when I started, I really was learning a lot. And I was in a room full of, I can't remember if I've told you this story, but a room full of like 30 people, and somebody at a networking event, and somebody said in front of everybody, "Hey, James, what does it mean to be clear?" Which is a pretty standard question, right? I didn't have an answer. So, oh, it's just clear. People understand it. And the answer wasn't good enough. And it should have been better. And that was where I turned clear into an acrostic. So clear then became, well, there's 5 factors we're looking for. It's client focused, it's logical, it's engaging, it's accurate, results driven. That's actually the definition of clear. And it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. So what I'd say there is, if somebody pushed you, what do you mean by define, or how do you define? Respectfully, right now, you probably don't have a concise answer for me, respectfully. So maybe that's what's needed there. So we define that by looking at these elements. Boom, boom, boom. So we just get that little bit of detail. One of my mantras, and I've got lots of them, as you can tell, I just live my life in silly slogans and mantras, but define everything. Because at some point, somebody's going to ask you, what do you mean by clear? What do you mean by define? What do you mean by efficient, effective, performance, bespoke, whatever? And you should have an answer, really. So we just need to define as much as possible.
Well, thank you.
I like that. Define. That's great. Hand up. Hello.
Hi. Yeah. So I was just wondering
Biz.
how much detail you need to give basically on these 3 problems. Right?
Okay. So the amount of detail. So in terms of how you do what you do, the amount of detail.
Yeah. Well, just so like the depth. For instance, the 3 problems, I was like, ensure line managers stay on the right side of the law, that they keep accurate and formalized records, and that you as HR are aware of all adjustments that are in place, i.e. there are no informal adjustments. Is that too much information at that level for just, oh, these are my 3 problems I'm solving for you?
What I would say there is, for each one of those, I would pick like a key word that covers each one. So there might be, compliance and performance and reporting or something like that. So we focus on these 3 areas, compliance, and then you can get into explain them if you need to. What we don't want to do is give people too much too soon, because it's irrelevant. So if you've ever been to a restaurant and they come out and tell you the specials menu, it's like, we've got a French onion soup for starter, blah, 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 and tiramisu. You generally order the first or last thing. There's a thing called primacy and recency, because you're given too much information and it blows your mind. So I would say have the high level articulations, like reporting, whatever those things were, reporting, compliance, blah, performance, whatever. On the actual slide, you can go into more detail. When you're talking about it, you can go into more detail. But if this was a presentation, bearing in mind my style of presentation, but it doesn't have to be yours, I just have those 3 words on it, and that'd be it. And then I'd talk around it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. And then you don't have to say yes if I haven't. And then book a call with me as well if you want to go through that in more detail. But then also, just going back a step, just to really make that point, find what works for you. So if you don't like the things I'm telling you to do, find your version of it that will resonate for you. But you've just got to be very careful that we're not giving people too much information or too little information. And my kind of guide, which I said a second ago, for how much is too much, if you can't memorize it and tell me, so with clear, client focused, I memorize that, I can say that all day long. If it was any longer than that and I couldn't do that, it's less compelling. What I mean by clear, it's client if you can tell I'm reading from something, it's not as compelling, and you don't get the sense that I know I'm talking about ultimately. Cool. Thank you for asking the question. I appreciate it. So we start with the problem. So that's where they are. That's where they want to be. Our solution is this. And obviously, when we're talking about our solution and how we do what we do, we're linking that back to their problem. So you're struggling to articulate this technical thing, Sunny. So we would suggest naming it because this and blah, 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 and do this and blah, 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 blah. At that point, if feasible, you could give examples of other people you've worked with. I mean, we can kind of do that in the YR section potentially, but you could say, we've worked with a technology company the last 6 months, had a similar problem. What we're trying to do is just, I was going to use the word convince. I hate to use that word. We want to convince them that we understand their problem and we can definitely help them. And they have to feel that. So it's when I had I was talking to somebody in the comments on LinkedIn today. If I have to tell you I'm an expert at something, I'm probably not an expert at it. You should make your own conclusions to whether or not you think I'm an expert at what I do or not. I shouldn't have to self-appoint myself as an expert. That's what we're trying to get to here. Pardon me. We need to sound like we know what we're talking about and present confidently for them to draw that conclusion. Then we move into what it will cost. So this comes back to either it's a ballpark figure or it's specific, or as we had a second ago, we'll ask them what their budget is. But when you ask, 9 times out of 10, people are very cagey about that and they won't tell you, even though they've got a budget, really. Of course they have. If you think about when you're going to buy something, whatever it is, you've got a rough expectation of what you're going to spend on the thing, whether it's a car, a bottle of wine, a holiday, whatever. Where that number comes from could be past experience, or it could just be an absolute guess, who knows, but you've always got a figure in mind. Always, always, always. You just probably don't want to share that with me if I ask you. And so if they don't share it with you, then you can give them the ballpark. Now, there's something that you can do here, which I don't really like, but I will share it with you anyway, because it's possible. So has anybody heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? Has anybody heard of this? So NLP, I can see vague, so Sunny's vaguely heard of it and nobody else has. So I'm only picking on you, Sunny, because you're my little Brady Bunch box. So NLP is about communication. It's about how our brain works. And some people view it as a really positive thing, and some people view it as a bit of a manipulative, negative thing. There's something you can do with pricing, which is called anchoring. So if I tell you, if you say, what do you charge? Or I tell you what I charge, I say, oh, it's from 50,000 down to 10,000. I've anchored you at 50. So the first number you hear, the first piece of information you hear anchors you. So 50,000 down to 10, that's very different when I say it's 10 up to 50. It's 10 up to 50 or 50 down to 10. The first number I give you, first piece of information, is your anchor. So some people like to give a higher number first, because it helps the person feel like, 50 down to 10 for you, it's only going to be 25. It feels like you've got away with it because it could have been 50, versus 10 up to 50, but it's only 25. But why wasn't it 10? Can you see the difference in how those numbers are presented? We anchor ourselves to the first number. So some people like to give the higher number first. I don't really like to do it because it does feel a bit like manipulation. So I'm sharing it with you because it's possible. For me, it's one of those things that I do not feel right doing that. So I start with a lower number, but it's possible. If you want to start with a high number and anchor them, it does really actually work. But for me, it's kind of on the edge of manipulating people and sort of playing with their mind, rather than just saying, here is what we are. Do you want it? Yes or no? And having that nice, frank, honest discussion, which is what I'm all about and what I promote. So it's possible. It's not for me, but it might be for you. And if it is, awesome, do it. But it's about finding what feels right to you. Then we move into, why should I choose you? Who struggles with this question? Why should I choose you over the competition? Does anybody really struggle with this differentiation piece of why somebody should pick you, apart from the fact that you're professional, reliable, affordable, passionate, experienced, etc., all these kind of things? Is that a problem you guys are facing? Sunny, I need you to nod either yes or no, otherwise I can't move forward. No. Okay, so Sunny doesn't have the problem. But some, thanks for being a good sport. Some of you might. Now, for me, differentiation in the marketplace, something that I do, it's very easy to fall into that trap of, we're professional, we're reliable, we're affordable, blah, blah, blah. But those are generally standard features. It's a bit like saying, come to my coffee shop because the water's clean. Sorry, the cups are clean and the water won't kill you, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of expecting that. I'm kind of expecting these standard things. I need something else, and something that I care about and that's meaningful for me. So this is the important point. I should care about it. And I've got a few examples of things we can do here. One of the things I want to talk about before I get to the next slide is USP. I hate the term USP. It drives me nuts because it's really misleading. Being unique selling proposition, being unique may not have any value whatsoever for your buyer. Thus, it's irrelevant. And it's really hard to be unique. I mean, you could have millions of black and white slides and talk really quickly. That's one way to be unique. But does it have value for you? I don't know. But it annoys me because people get really hung up on, but how are you unique? How are we a super special snowflake? Maybe you're not. Doesn't matter. What matters is what your buyers are looking for, what they care about. And it could be some basic things like this. I love that line there. It's how well your solution integrates with their current circumstances. That's probably one of the longest sentences I have in all these presentations. So it could be the scope of your offering. You should work with us because we deal with things as big as you need or as small as you need. That kind of no job too small, no job too big kind of thing. You should work with me because of my track record. I've got people to £1 million a month. And I've got 450 LinkedIn recommendations. I'm awesome. Of course, you should work with me, kind of thing. We wouldn't deliver it that flippantly. I'm being playful. It could be your pricing. We're the budget option in the marketplace. We're the premium option in the marketplace, or whatever. Differentiating on price is not one of my favorites, but it is like NLP. It's possible. People do it. It's not my favorite. Your guarantees. So we guarantee the work that we do. We provide all these kind of assurances to limit, minimize, or completely eliminate the risks that you might be facing. It could be your methods. Well, people generally pick us as a kitchen company because we've got a very unique methodology: lifestyle, space, taste, and budget. If you remember that from session 1. Other people have a bit more of a hit and miss kind of shotgun approach. So just be careful there. It could be the speed of the result. So we do things faster. We're an express service. So one of the MSDUK people from the last cohort, a company called SpeedDel, I ended up doing their messaging for them and working with them properly. And they're a same-day delivery company, but they actually deliver on average within about 3 hours to anywhere in the UK. So we were talking about the fact that they were better than same day, and this notion of it's actually better than same day, and here's how they do it. And how they actually do it, which is their methodology, is they operate a direct to destination model. So when you give your parcel to them, they put it in a van, and that man or woman and that van just goes to the destination. That's it. With any other same day courier, you give it to the person, they go to a depot, it goes to another van, another depot, blah, 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 blah. It's a bit of a mess. But these guys are direct to destination, which is a term I coined for them to explain the difference. So we're the fastest way to get your shipment there today. And there's a rhyme to that, right? There's a nice mellifluous sound. We're the fastest way to get your shipment there today, which sounds like a really ballsy, bold claim, but they can justify it because of how they do what they do. So speed of result could be important. How long your result lasts. And again, this is a really good one for justifying the price, etc. So how long does a clear sales message last? How long does your product or service or initiative, whatever you're up to, actually last? Are we talking weeks, months, days, decades, years? Give that some thought. Could be how well your solution integrates with their current circumstances. That's easy for you to say. So sometimes people have technology. So like, I don't know, I've got Macs. We don't have PCs. Will it work? Or we've got these people. Do we need training? Do we need this? Do we need that? So it could be, yeah, we can help you even if you don't have that, or even if you do have that, or whatever. So it's about the integration piece. It could be repeating yourself with guarantees. That appears twice on this slide. That's awesome. That's how important guarantees are. I've put it there twice. It could be awards that you've won. Now, I'm not award winning at this stage, but if you have won awards, as long as they're meaningful for your buyer. So there's no point being, like the best small business in Lewisham 2021 kind of thing. Well, that's great for you. But as a buyer, I don't really care. What does that mean for me? And this is where what that means is, that phrase, what that means is, that's how we go from feature to benefit. So we won an award for being the best business in Lewisham, whatever it was, 2021. What that means is, blah, 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 blah. They have to care about it. There'll be notable success stories and transformations. So I'd expect all of you, if you've got a good history of clients, to be able to tell me kind of the best story that you've got, the best result that you've got. For me, for one of my clients, is I took them from 3 million a year to about 12 million a year in turnover over the course of about 3 years. So they're about £1 million a month now or so. That's one of the best transformations I've got. So I can talk about that. And then finally, your niche. So I specialize in messaging and value proposition design. Other people might cover it, but they might not specialize in it. So if you really want to go deeper on this, you really want a specialist in the area, I'm the choice for you. So here's some examples of how we differentiate why people should choose us. With all of this, it's with the caveat of why would they care? And we've got to be really brutal about that, because if I don't care about your silly awards or guarantees meaningless to me or how, whatever, then I'm not going to care about it. And we just drift back into we're professional, we're reliable, we're affordable. So I'm almost going to get off my soapbox. It's fine. So don't worry about being unique. That's the main thing. I always make this joke that, if I turned up to this presentation day completely covered head to toe in glitter, I'd definitely be unique. You've never seen anything like that. But do you care? Have any value for you? No. If anything, it would detract from what I'm telling you. It's pointless. So unique is a bit of a red herring. I go for ESP, engaging selling proposition. What would somebody care about? There's some options. Book a call with me and I can help you if you're struggling with that. And then we just remember that what that means is. So here is the cool thing. What that means for you is blah. That's how we go from feature to benefit. It's a fully lay flat bed in business class. What that means is you can actually sleep on the flight and arrive in New York rested, kind of thing. So we're taking a feature, turning it into a benefit. For me in particular, this is actually how I work. So when I work with people to create messaging, I work to an unlimited timescale, which sounds scary, doesn't it? I have to reassure people that doesn't mean you're going to be stuck with me for years. It's okay. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks. But what that means is we'll work together until you're 100% happy, or I refund you in full. So in my terms and conditions, I'm completely refundable. I get paid in full upon commencement. When I start with somebody, I'm completely refundable. And I kind of make this joke that you're stuck with me until we get this right ultimately. Never had any problems with that. No refunds, no issues. But it's my way of demonstrating my confidence in what I'm doing. Hopefully not too much, hopefully it's come across as arrogant. This just comes across as confident and interesting, but also it's unusual because nobody really offers money. If they're going to do creative work with somebody, and if you don't like it, you're going to get your money back. That's unheard of generally, because you have to spend time creating these things and doing it. If I've named your product or service, I spent time doing that. So if you don't like it and then you want your money back, I've wasted my time. So it just shows you that I'm taking the risk here because I know I can help you. And this is one of the ways that I differentiate from competitors, but also one of the ways that I close and convert people, because it's my assurance that you'll definitely get what you paid for. I can definitely help you. Oh, and by the way, I've got 450 recommendations on LinkedIn. You can ask any of those people. You can DM them, whatever. I have like complete transparency, like judge me on my reputation, ask anybody any question. The decision is yours. It's entirely up to you. So it's not even low pressure. I have a no pressure approach to selling and closing. I'm like, I'd love to work with you, but it's up to you, Sonny. You tell me, but here's all the stuff that you need to make the best decision for yourself. Cool. That was a soapbox moment, wasn't it? Look at that. Okay. That's why us. And again, we can on the call talk about that if you struggle with differentiation. Why now? So here's your problem. Here's what we can do for you. Here's how we're going to do it. This is what it costs. This is why we're the best people to do it. But why now? Why is now the best time to do this? A couple of reasons. The first one is the trigger point. So we know that you're losing sales because people just don't understand what you actually offer right now, or whatever the problem happens to be. So there are consequences here. So you're experiencing a trigger, a motivator, something that's adding urgency right now. And in the same way, you join the gym or you choose not to, there are consequences for both of those. Inaction is a form of action, and indecision is a form of decision. It's just inaction and indecision is a little bit hidden from view. So it doesn't feel like I'm choosing to be unfit and unhealthy by not going to the gym, because I don't want to confront that reality. But that's what I'm choosing to do. And the trigger point, there might be something happen for me right now that I have to deal with. And for a lot of the people that you're pitching to and talking to, you can literally kind of say, as respectfully, not as flippantly as possible, we're having this conversation for a reason, right? We're talking about your branding, your messaging, your widgets, your this, your that, because you're facing these challenges. So now's the best time to deal with it, because if you leave something and don't address it, generally things deteriorate and get worse. They don't get better if you leave them. So we need to address this. Hey, it doesn't have to be us, but I think we can agree you need to take some kind of action here. And then the law of inaction. I kind of made that point ahead of the slide. I'm ahead of the game today. But what happens if you do nothing? So what happens if you do nothing overall? So you decide, you know what, a clear sales message is not for me. Not going to do it at all. There's an impact there, and I need to paint that out to you. And then I would say, are you okay with that? I'm not sure if I'd be okay with that. And also delay. So if you don't do it now, 6 months, 10 minutes, 3 weeks, whatever, there's also a cost there. It's just hidden from view. So just to be really clear, if you don't have your brand defined right now, this could happen for you. And in fact, you've probably already seen this happen. Are you okay for that to continue? I'm not sure if I would be okay for that to continue, to be honest with you, Sonny. And just have that kind of leveling conversation with them. It's never given through the lens of, well, if you don't buy from us, the world will end. We're the only people that can save you. We're not putting that pressure in the conversation, but we are giving them the harsh reality of what they're facing. And on the flip side of that, we can get them excited with FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO. If you don't do this, things could be so good. This time next week, you could be closing deals and doing stuff and being confident and blah, blah, blah. if you had a clear sales message, this, that, these widgets we sell, whatever, it could be that good. And you're just going to miss out on that. Or your competitors will beat you to it or whatever. Are you okay with that? And again, to paint that picture. So we've got this issue of inaction. So looking at the negative consequences, but then we've also got, hey, here's all the cool stuff that could happen, but you're essentially opting out of that. Are you okay? Do you want to do that kind of thing? In terms of how you actually, I get quite playful and flippant on these things. I know that. So in terms of how you actually have your tone of voice for this kind of stuff, I like to be respectfully curious. That's my term for it. So I'm always polite and respectful with people. I would never be rude to them or tell them what they should or shouldn't do or give them my kind of cutting opinion on things. So I'm always respectful and just curious. What would happen if that? And are you okay if that would happen? So we kind of leave that open-endedness, that curiosity, because they can fill in the gaps. You know damn well if you don't go to the gym, what's going to happen. I'm just causing you to think about it and to readdress your decision. But it shouldn't be in the way of I'm insulting you. So overnight, it's funny, I should have put it in this presentation actually, but overnight I got a DM through Instagram, and Instagram is not my strongest suit, I can assure you. And somebody said, oh, hi, James, loving your profile. But to be honest with you, your posts need a bit of editing, bit of direction, bit of strategy, blah, blah, blah. Oh, but don't worry, that's what we do. We can help you. And for me, yeah, that's just too much. You can't, even if they're right, and they probably are right, you can't be that direct with people. You just can't, even if that is the reality. So I kind of used the flippant example of, I can't go through LinkedIn or wherever trying to identify overweight people to DM them and say, hey, you're fat, but don't worry, I can help you. It doesn't work like that. We have to stay respectfully curious and say, look, this is what we can do. Here's the consequences, whatever. Or are you okay with that? But never really placing our judgment on them or feeling like they've got nowhere to go. Okay. Let me just move that out the way so I can see. Yeah. And then what next? We haven't actually talked about this yet. This is something that takes some of my clients and students by surprise. God forbid somebody says, hey, Sunny, I want to buy from you. This sounds awesome. Let's do it. I'm picking on you, Sunny. Could be anybody. Are you ready for that? A lot of people actually are surprised. Let me just move this bar out of the way. Sorry. Are actually surprised when people want to buy from them because they spent so long worrying about objections and this and that and everything else. At some point, you're going to talk to somebody and go, oh my God, clear sales message. Yes, please. How do we do it? Let's go. I don't need any more details. James, shut up. I just want to buy. Let's go. Are you actually ready? What are the next steps?
That did actually happen to me once.
Yeah. and you try and contain your surprise. Like, hold on a second. And for me as a buyer, it can be a bit disconcerting. Like, oh my God, has Sunny ever sold this to anybody before? Like, why is she surprised? Kind of thing. So in the same way we've got to be confident and sure of how we articulate our offering, we've also got to make it sound and feel like I'm expecting you to buy. So there's no pushing or convincing or persuading. But if you choose how to go ahead, oh, great, you like to go ahead? Awesome. Here's how we do it. Bum, 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 bum. Nice and easy, nice and straightforward. So what are the next steps? So this was inspired by a Carpetright sample. I told you I lived a rock and roll lifestyle. I got a sample of carpet from Carpetright, and this was in the little package that they sent me. And I thought this was really cool. It's basic, but it's cool. So this is what I can do. I can go to the shop, I can order online, I can have somebody come over and measure it for me, or I can call them. This might seem like obvious sales message pointing at the obvious, but without that, what do I might email them. Could I go into the shop? Is the shop and the website a different entity? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. So by pointing out the obvious to me, I know exactly what I need to do. Oh, you'd like to go ahead with a clear sales message? Awesome. What I need to do first of all is just confirm your company details. I'll put you across an invoice and we'll book the first 3 sessions in the diary. How does the 12th of April sound for you? Kind of thing. But we just make it sound like I'm expecting this to happen. It's another day at the office. It's not my first time at the rodeo, and that's it. I always remember for this example, this kind of another day at the office thing. My wife has had a couple of C-sections, and she's always very nervous when they happened. Rightfully so. I would have been nervous too. But I was reassuring her at the time, saying, look, it's like Tuesday afternoon for these guys. This is their job. This is just Tuesday afternoon. They've had 10 people before you. They'll have 100 people after you or more. It's just Tuesday afternoon. They know what they're doing. Just relax. And that's how they deal with you, right? Like, hello, welcome, come in, blah, blah, blah. It's another day at the office for them. And that's what we want this to sound like when somebody actually wants to go ahead. Because if you're kind of caught on the hop, as you were, Sunny, it's quite funny, isn't it? Because you're aware of that, and you're, and you're trying to play. It's like if you remember Only Fools and Horses, when he falls through the bars, like play it cool, Trig, and he just kind of, as you fall through the bar, going, oh God, what do I want them to actually do? I don't know. So just sort out what are the next steps. We'd love to work with you. Actually, we're really excited. Got some ideas, blah, blah, blah. This is how you do it. You book a call, you pay a deposit, you fill out the Calendly form to book a call with me, whatever it is, have it there, have it streamlined. There we go. So that's the perfect pitch. And that is how we lay it out from start to finish. What's the problem? What's the end result? What's the solution? What does it cost? Which is the value loop in and of itself. Why us? Why now? What next? You will be taught how to pitch and how to present, etc. And they will maybe give you a different way of doing it, admittedly. This is my way of doing it. And again, you got to find what works for you. Maybe you like my way, maybe you like theirs, maybe you like a hybrid of the two. Doesn't matter to me. As long as you find what works for you, and as long as you remember to focus on giving them everything they need so they can make the best decision for themselves. But definitely with that eye to that hidden choice, that hidden thing. If you don't join the gym, bad things will happen. Are you okay? Because if we don't articulate this, and that's where that nice to have objection comes in. I don't want to join the gym. I'm fine. There's no downside to me, seemingly. So you have to point that out to me. Okay. Excuse me. Now we get into what do you do? So what do you do? We covered this in the first session. Most commonly asked question in business. We're asked it all the time. We generally tell people what we are, right? What do you do? I'm a sales consultant. I'm a photographer. I'm a landscape gardener, whatever. If I tell you what I am, not what I do, it seems flippant and nuanced, but you can't then connect with me because I'm relying on your understanding of what a landscape gardener does, or a solicitor or a nurse or whatever. If you can tell me what you do contextually and you can connect with me, and for me, selling is about that connection point. So it's really good communication, finding that connection point. I can then talk to you further if you're interested. There's tons of different ways we can do this. This is the template I share most often, which is I help client. And this is the client type that's most relevant to the audience you're speaking with. So we don't want a laundry list of 15 different types of companies and businesses you work with. It's whichever one is most relevant to who you're talking to in that moment. We help client to achieve benefit. So benefit is the end result, the destination. How do you leave them better than when you found them? By method. And that's how you do it, your secret sauce, your whatever. But this forces you to back end that, because nobody cares about that first of all. What they care about is, can you actually help them with the problem they've got? Then they'll care about how you do it. Most of us get this wrong, and we start with, oh my God, I've got this great methodology, blah, blah, blah. Whoa, 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 slow down there, cowboy. Can you help me first? I don't know. Here's my problem. Has anybody had a go at this? I don't know. I keep putting my hand up like we're in a real world scenario. Has anybody, hands up, if you had a go at this? Anybody want to share this with me? Yes. Renal.
Thanks. Renal.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
terrible
okay.
at pronunciation.
That's
Sorry.
Okay. No, Renal. No, that's fine. So I'll have a go.
Awesome.
So I help businesses to build better professional relationships by designing strategic business development solutions for them.
Okay. What type of businesses do you work with?
So generally SMEs.
Okay. So could we say that there potentially?
Yep. I help SMEs.
Or could we, sorry, I'm just going to riff on this bit in particular, or could we talk about size of business in terms of number of staff or turnover? If you've ever played that game, Guess Who, right? Flip them down. Like, I'm looking for people that have got a mustache and are wearing glasses. Flip them down so we can identify who it is. So, and I know SME is in my example, but if we say SME, that could be a bit broad. So I help businesses turning over.
Businesses turning over 2 to 20 million achieve better business relationships.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
And this comes, and I'm the devil's advocate. I'm the worst for this. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Renal?
So better business relationship. If they want to find new clients, if they want to build relationships with their existing clients, so their current network.
Yeah.
The people they already know, prospects, partners, suppliers, current clients, and staff.
So what does that mean for them? So what I'm trying to get to here is, and I don't actually know the answer because we're riffing on this.
Yeah.
So if I've got better relationship, you've done your magic, it's all awesome.
Yeah.
What do I notice? Because respectfully, nobody's going to sit there and think, you know what we need is some better business relationships. That'd be awesome. They're going to be talking about other things and thinking other things. So what do those better relationships mean?
Increase in sales.
Mm-hmm. To new and existing clients, I would guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not just finding new clients. I think people are going to get more business from their existing client base, their existing network.
Yeah. So we can talk. I mean, you could either talk about that in isolation or just front load that. So I help businesses turning over 2 to 20 million to maximize every commercial opportunity with their existing clients.
Yeah.
And even though that's admittedly, that's a little bit wordy, right? It's a few words there. The principle is sound and we understand it. And you wouldn't ever see this written down, right? We wouldn't actually write that necessarily anywhere. But if I met you at a business event or something, you said, I help businesses of 2 to 20 million, and immediately I'm opting myself in or out of that based on my turnover. So it's a bit like the IFA thing. So is it £1? Is it £250,000? I don't know. So 2 to 20 million, great. I'm in or I'm out. To maximize every commercial opportunity with existing clients.
Yep.
So do you want to write that down? Are you with me? Do you want to write that down?
Yeah.
I talk so fast. I have conversations with people like, can you say that again?
Yeah. Maximizing commercial opportunities.
Every commercial opportunity.
Every commercial opportunity. Yeah.
And let's touch on that phrase for a second. So when it comes to sales and selling and messaging, my job is to get people to be as confident and as cavalier and as bold as possible. So we've got to say the most strongest attractive things, with the caveat, we don't want to mislead people or actively lie to them. So people don't like to use terms like anything, everything, always, unlimited, etc., because we're thinking about that out loud. Oh, but what if that happens and I can't do it? So this is one of those things of it has to feel right to you. But if we can use a term like every commercial opportunity, and maximize that opportunity could mean any number of things, of just having a better relationship, selling more stuff to them, getting a referral, whatever. So as long as you feel okay with that, but I'd urge all of you to push yourselves to use terms like anything, everything, always, unlimited, etc. As long as you don't feel like you're actually lying or misleading people, it's not what I'm telling you to do, but you need to be as bold and as cavalier and sweeping as possible, because that's how it sounds attractive. So one of the things I do for Clear Sales Message is say, I'll help you to answer any question possible about your business online or offline. And how I achieve that is when I go through the process at the start and I'm researching them, I say, what are the questions that you have? And I've got this set of questions I've got, and we reach consensus on, okay, these are all the questions that could possibly be asked. And now we have an answer for all of them. So I'm very confident I can deliver that. And if you just put that over the lens of right now in your business, you might be thinking, I don't know how to differentiate or justify the price or whatever. And I'm telling you, whatever the question, Rena, it doesn't matter. We can answer it. That's what you want to be hearing. That's attractive. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I understand.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. And then talk to me about
your method. The method, I mean, we started as an event management company. So it can be through events, but it's not all we do. Okay. So that's why I say strategic business development opportunities. And I think I gave the golf club example yesterday. Yes. So we have a golf club for people in the property sector. Okay. So we did 12 events last year, and they get together and network, and we have a WhatsApp group, and we're teaching people how to play golf, so then they can come and join the golf days where they can get more business. Nice. So that's the kind of premise of it.
Okay. Is it solely based around golf or not?
No, it's not.
Excuse my ignorance.
No, we do other types of events, and we do video work and other things. It's just that's an example.
Okay, so events, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking to get is we help this type of client to achieve this thing through events, blah and blah, something like that.
Strategy, content, and events. They're the three things that I say we do.
Okay, so I think all we'd need there is a descriptive of that. So strategy, content, and events. What
So I call that strategic business development. That's how I describe it.
Yeah, my only issue with that, and sorry, I'm very direct with these things. I don't mean to be rude. It's all meant to be constructive. Is other people on this call and put your hand up if you want to chip in, would you know what that actually means, or would you flinch and question it? Because as soon as we use terms like strategy or efficiency or whatever, it's interpretive. So there's great value in being ambiguous, but if we're ambiguous and there's a potential just to completely disconnect, like, what do you mean by efficiency? Or I don't know, then it's a problem. So maybe it could be, I help this type of client to maximize every opportunity through, what did you say? Events,
strategy and content. So for the Prop Golf Club, we're going to be creating content, videos, podcasts, training guides, things like that.
What you might need to say is actually social media content, because some people might not understand. It always makes me laugh when copywriters are trying to sell copywriting to people. So have you thought for a second that people might not know what copywriting actually is, respectfully? So we've got to use their language. So I would say through events, through strategic events and social media content. So we'll ignore the strategy in isolation on its own, because the strategy is kind of evident in the events and the content that you're producing, right?
Yeah.
And so if we just rewind that back to the top, so I help businesses of 2 to 20 million to maximize every commercial opportunity with their existing client base and also new clients potentially through strategic events and social media content, something like that. Yes, that still might seem a bit wordy, but does that accurately portray what you do?
Yes.
And could somebody understand that? So people on this call right now, and I need a brave volunteer here. This is the interactive bit. Does anybody still not understand that? Or are you fairly confident you could work out what to expect from that?
I kind of got the impression, and I don't know whether that's because of our conversations previously, that there was a well-being aspect in running these golfing events. So that was the thing that you were doing. But now that you've done this exercise where you're talking about you're creating content, are you then doing learning and well-being, or have I misunderstood?
Yeah, I mean, golf gives you all those things. So I think it helps a lot with mental health and well-being. And we are training people to learn to play. But when I did my survey as well, there's other courses. I mean, what you get from being in the golf environment is learning from successful people who you tend to meet. So there is a learning element to that, kind of learning and mentoring. So I'm putting that all together and using golf as the medium to deliver that.
So I think it's funny. I was just looking at how to raise my own hand on the call. I thought it'd be quite funny, and then I couldn't do it. I have to learn that for next time, so it could be hilarious. So that's really interesting, though, Sunny, that you took that notion from it. So we've got to be really careful that when and this is that law of past experience thing. So when I say I'm a sales consultant, you've got a connotation. So as soon as you mention golf, I know we're not mentioning golf in here specifically, it has other overtones for people. But what I think that would actually pertain to, which is really interesting, and we'll do it on our call together, or you can do it kind of as homework and come back to me and I can help you with it, is if this is about maximizing opportunities and promoting strong relationships, how do you do that? So define a good relationship and what constitutes it and how you protect it and how you grow it, and having those elements. So it's about the interpersonal side of things, it's about the professional side of things, and it's about something or whatever, but like almost like a pie chart of these elements come together to do it. So it's additional to what we're talking about here. But when somebody says either, well, what's the importance of good relationships? How do we know if it's a bad relationship, blah, blah, blah? You'll need to be able to articulate your way in and out of those things. And if you've got some components like that come together, that'll really help you. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, so define what a good relationship is and what a bad relationship is, and show how the solution can give them that, so the destination.
Yeah, and the importance of both. So it might seem ridiculously basic for you. What's the importance of having a good relationship? How would I know if I've got a good relationship with a client? There's a couple of things we're looking out for here, James. First of all is kind of responsiveness to your communication. Second one is this, third one is that, whatever. But this goes back to just having a definition for everything, because at some point you get some smart aleck like me who's going to say, but what do you mean by that? And there's nothing worse, trust me, than just being caught out. And to be fair, you should be able to articulate that. You should know, because that's your area of expertise. respectfully. So having that ready will do good. Will put you in good stead. And absolutely, I'm pushed for time here, so we'll move on. But if you have more time, I'd help you explore that right now. But when we get into the how you do what you do bit in a second, and I've got the different kind of graphics for how you do it, and also different names. I might use this as the example, but just be mindful of that, particularly kind of how we visualize and explain it. Cool. But thank you for being a good sport and volunteering. Okay, so we can work with this on the call, but this is ultimately now on the video for the module task. You don't feel constrained by this. You do not have to be constrained to this template at all. Say whatever you want. It just needs to be as concise as possible. So if you can just free text it. So for me, it'd be, I teach people how to sell, potentially. That's good enough. Don't feel constrained by this template. It's here to help you, not to imprison you and cause you issues. So for me, as we know, it would be that. And obviously small to medium-sized enterprise, we could change that to turnover, location, whatever. This goes back to that flip it down notion of guess who, right? So I help bald men who wear cream jumpers to, oh, I'm listening. You know, you've identified me. That's the whole point of that. So we want to get people bought in straight away because they're identifying with what you're saying. Okay. Final thing is how you do what you do. And this really is kind of, yes, it's your methodology, but I'd say in addition to that, it's the definition for the different terms that you might use and being able to explain those. So we had this terrible diagram before of, you know, where they start, where they end. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to have 5 steps and it doesn't have to be like this visually. We'll get into some examples in a second of how it could be. But we just need to understand when you meet people, they're here, either they know they've got terrible relationships or they're not sure, or actually they think they do, but maybe they don't. So that's where they start. You'll then go through a process of finding out if that's the case or not, identifying problems and challenges, etc., formulating the content and the events and blah, 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 hosting them, and then feeding back. So that could be a linear, logical step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And in terms of the number of steps, doesn't have to be 5 or 3 or whatever, but it's got to be as few as many that you could sketch it out, or you could tell me off the top of your head without having to remember it. So if you can do that with a 15-step process, then more power to you, but the shorter, the better, because your buyer will have to try and remember this and internalize it also. So if you can keep it to 2 or 3 and keep it high level, that's better from my point of view. And then we visualize it. And there's a number of different ways we can do this. So I'm just going to run through your options and you'll get these slides. And this is just to give you some inspiration with my terrible graphics. So here we go. First one is an equation. For me, clarity plus confidence equals conversion. A mathematical equation, if you take something where it literally doesn't add up. So you could have, you know, subtraction, multiplication, whatever. It doesn't have to be addition, but you can have these components. So, you know, strong communication plus willingness to identify opportunity for our clients equals great relationship or something like that. So this could be a way that we articulate what constitutes a good relationship. It could be a mathematical equation where everything has to add up to make sense. It could be aligning things together. So once this is aligned with this, so when everybody in the business and every process in the business and all of your touch points, when they align together and say the same thing, that's when you have a clear sales message kind of thing. So it could be an alignment of things rather than a step-by-step process. So if you want great relationships with people, we've got to align what you're doing for them with what they need, with their communication style and frequency or whatever. It's a bit like that love language thing, right? So people like to communicate and be shown love, etc., in different ways. So you got to understand that for your people. If you're over communicating with them, you might think it's great. It might be actually really annoying them. So if we can align all that together, it will work. Could be a step-by-step as we had at the top. First we do this, then we do that, then we do that. And guys, none of this is rocket science, of course, but these are your options of how to do it. Could be a circular thing. So having great relationships doesn't start and finish, I would guess, right? So we start with this, we do this, we do that, we do that, and then we review it and we do it again. So that's why the value loop is a circular process, because you can go through that as many times as you need to until you get it right. There isn't really a start and an end to that. If I express that as a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 logical thing, and how does that sound to you as the last one and that's it, it feels like, well, there's nowhere else to go. Then what do we do if it doesn't sound all right to them? So by making it into a loop, we can just go straight back to, oh, but Sonny, you told me, blah, blah, blah. And we can go around again. Could be a hierarchy. So if you want great relationships, the absolute first foundational thing you must do is blah. We then build on that with blah, and we build on that with blah. And obviously, I'd hope that you'd use slightly better graphics and better color on your diagrams. A matrix or matrices. So again, this is that things coming together to make the whole. I often use this when I'm differentiating people from the competition. So if you're looking for the perfect widget, Mr. Customer, there's 4 things you've got to look out for: the price, the this, the that, the that. Now, if you choose this competitor, yeah, you've got the price and the thing, but that and that are missing. So those would be kind of colored in red. So sometimes I use this to say, and this is lifestyle, space, taste, and budget, right? So if you use these people, they're going to ask you about your budget and they're going to ask you about your taste. Of course they are. What does it look like? What have you got to spend? And they'll probably ask you about the space too. But did they at any point ask you how you're going to use your kitchen? Because if they don't, it can't be the best kitchen for you by definition, can it? Because they don't really understand that you've got dogs, you like to entertain, you don't cook at all, you just have takeaways, blah, blah, blah. Lifestyle is one of the most important parts of designing a kitchen, isn't it, Mr. Customer? So in that way, I've not only told you how I do what I do, I can use this to differentiate and preclude and exclude the competition in as respectful a way as possible. We don't want to actively badmouth the competition, but we can say, you know, these people, they might not do that. If you're okay with that, that's fine. But we found it's really important. Could be an essential model, just like a hierarchical model, right? First we do this, then we do that, then we do that. So there might be a logical cause of foundational things that build on one another. This is one of my favorites. This is for an old course I used to have called Selling Confidence. I had 10 kind of rules, 10 principles. This does fly in the face of being able to remember it and jot it down for people. Totally get that. Totally contradicting myself here. But if you can have it, it's interesting. There doesn't have to be 10. There could be 3 or 4 or 5. But for me, the first thing was always lead with value. So when you talk with somebody, you've got to leave them better than when you found them. And value is one of those words where people are like, what does it mean? I don't know. So I've got a definition for it. I have to have, right? If somebody says, what do you mean by value, James? Let me tell you. Value is anything that's going to get your buyer closer to where they need to be. That's it. That's value. And hopefully it doesn't preclude them from buying from you. So if I gave you access today to all of my courses and books and everything that I've got, all my methodology, I'm going to get you close to where you want to be, but I can't really then sell anything to you. So that's not value, right? Value is when I'm sharing it in a social media setting or talking, it's something that's going to help get you that next step on your journey, a little edge closer. In any conversation, whether I sell to you or not, I don't care. I want to leave you better than when I found you. And, you know, there's other ones there, etc. But if you have a set of principles, a set of rules, a set of beliefs, that could be how you do what you do. I had a corporate travel agency I worked with a few years ago. Quite a few years ago now. COVID's like the longest, shortest 3 years ever, isn't it? I think things were last year and actually like 4 years ago now. They did corporate travel and they would know me as James, not Mr. Newell. They would know the airline I like, the food I like, the hotel. They know my wife is called Alice, blah, blah, blah. And they genuinely know that. They do a great job. So they've got 2 options. Either they can tell you that, which takes forever. And also it's like me saying, I'm really good at what I do. And you should definitely work with me because I'm an expert and I'm awesome. It's not really that compelling, is it? I need to feel it, not be told it. So I created a tagline for them, which is their how they do what they do. It's 3 simple words. And it's a bit like that red, sporty, fast schema we talked about yesterday. I can tell you these 3 words, and you could probably write me a paragraph or even do like a short talk on what you'd expect in terms of service levels. Their approach to corporate travel, so business travelers, is this: people, not passengers. That's it. People, not passengers. That's how we'll treat you. That's our ethos. That's how we do everything we do. We treat you like a person, not a passenger. So from that, you'll think, well, they'll probably then remember my name and what I like to eat and blah, blah. Absolutely. And more besides. But by saying people, not passengers, we're opening up that ambiguity, which is completely positive. You can't really read negatively into that at all. And I can still get everything across I need to, but without spending half an hour doing it, or you saying, but why did James have to tell me he was an expert? I should just know he's an expert. People, not passengers. And again, if you struggle with this stuff, when we have our call, more than happy to help you with this. Some of this stuff is, you know, for me with all my examples, it's easy and in a perfect world setting, say, oh, this is it. It's so easy, guys. I know it's a bit harder to actually do for yourself. So I'm here if you need help with that. Then we name the process. And there's a few things we can do here. I'll just get them all on screen, and you'll have access to this, or take a screenshot if you want for now or whatever. So there's 5 different ways we can name a process or whatever on the left-hand side. That can be swapped out for any of those words on the right-hand side. So the sell more method. So the end result is you're going to sell more stuff. That could be the sell more flow, the sell more maneuver. I love it. Who can spell the word maneuver? The sell more strategy, whatever. Could be the end result plus time. And I know you've read ahead of me, you cheeky monkeys. So we could add the time into it if that's important, if somebody cares about it. If they don't, then it's irrelevant and we don't put it in there. It could be the implementation of how we do it. So amongst my students, you've got this eat fruit and veg 5 a day thing. For my clients and students, I've got 5 a day in terms of 5 new outreaches with people that you've never spoken to before, 5 existing people that you're warming up, and 5 follow-ups, if possible, for people you've spoken to previously, under the guise of don't chase and replace them. So if there aren't any, there aren't any, but we're trying to do 5 a day, as it were. It could be the characteristics of something. So the no scalpel method is actually the name for a particular type of vasectomy, which is exciting. But that could be, the no scalpel shortcut. That sounds painful, doesn't it? But the no scalpel whatever, we take that from the right hand side. Or it could be the problem itself, the belly fat technique, the belly fat framework, the belly fat formula. There's a million more ways to name things than that. But what we need is a name that, first of all, is just any name will do, first of all. If we can make it relevant and cool and exciting, that's great. But the fact your process of working has some kind of a name will give it value, because things that have names have implied value. And then we just play with that on the right-hand side. What's going to work for you? To be fair, something like maneuver is really not going to work because people are going to flinch when it comes to spelling it. So when you're naming something, it has to be, and I name businesses, products, and services all the time. It has to be easy to read, write, speak, and spell. Read, write, speak, and spell. If we fall down on any of those, and you definitely would with maneuver, because even I'm supposed to be clever, even I would mess it up if I tried to do it now without looking at it, right? So maneuver is probably not the best word, but easy to read, write, speak, and spell. That's what we're looking for when we name something. Okay, that's everything I've got for today. Look at me with 8 minutes to spare. So the module task, 2 things. What do you do? Doesn't have to be that framework. Do not feel constrained by that. That's there to help you, not to constrain you, and how you do it. It has to be a video up to 60 seconds. If you get it done in 25, 10 seconds, whatever, more power to you. Don't feel obliged to just fill all the time available. And if it takes you longer as well, don't panic. Send it anyway, because I can help you to cut it down. So don't spend ages agonizing over it. If you're really struggling, don't worry about it. Send it across. I'll give feedback to each and every single one of you, and with some pointers, with the caveat, I'm extremely direct, but it's always meant positively and constructively. I never mean to be rude, but I'll have some very kind of direct things and opinions on it. If you want to book a call and you haven't already, and quite a few of you have, go to the Accelerator app. You can book a call with me. And I'm going to take a bow. Thank you very much. Any questions, guys?
Yes.
We've got 7 minutes. Go for it. Of course, you've got a question.
I know, this is like my school report. Thank you very much, James.
You're welcome. Then I'll come to you, Bees. I see you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Thank you ever so much. So going back to the template you gave us about helping out.
Yep.
So also talking about the last slide you just said about having something with a name. So I've got something called the Fireproof Career. We fireproof people's careers from burnout in order to help organizations achieve sustainable high performance teams.
Okay.
With the template, I was playing around with, I partner with corporate companies to achieve sustainable high performance teams by providing burnout intervention and well-being services, because they're not the same thing, and at the moment they're being conflated. Would it be better to do that to highlight the difference in what I do from the rest of the market, i.e. they provide well-being initiatives, we do burnout intervention, or do I use the framework name of the Fireproof Career? Do I insert that?
I like the Fireproof Career, because fireproof, I mean, my next question would be, well, how do you fireproof something? What do you mean by fireproof?
Well, James, stress is just like fire, and burnout's like your house is on fire.
I love it. And so, guys, this is a great example, Mars bar for you. This is a great example of equivalence. Stress is like fire. We understand, right? Fire is dangerous. It eats away at things. It's easily out of control.
But it also has the potential to be productive and constructive if it's well managed.
Why aren't you giving this presentation? I've wasted my time here. Right, Shazida, next time. There we go. You've replaced me now. Now, I would say, yeah, I using the fireproof thing is cool because immediately I can understand it because we've got that kind of schema thing going on where we get it. And I'm presuming pretty much everybody else got it. If you didn't, then raise your hand up and let us know. But I think, generally speaking, most people would get that. What we've got to be careful of is that was an awful lot of words and syllables when you were doing it. And I don't know if you were reading that or if you had that memorized. Maybe you had that memorized. But I need to be able to just to get it straight away. So the first part of it was we help corporate companies. Well, companies.
I want to say partner. Is that okay?
Yeah. We partner with. So you said corporate companies. The companies are corporate. So so we're kind of using the same term but a different way. Okay. So again, I go back to, we partner with companies in this sector or this size or experiencing this problem, whatever. So, we partner with technology companies, we partner with growing companies, we partner with newly acquired companies, we partner with IPO whatever. So some way of describing the nature of that avatar.
Okay, so I think maybe that's where my struggle is. Burnout doesn't discriminate. So I literally work with companies across different sectors, industries, from like the Walt Disney Company, Channel 4, Bank of London, Middle East. Like there literally is no discrimination when it comes to burnout. It just so happens that they are big companies.
I thought you didn't like to name drop. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm learning. I really did learn my lesson yesterday. I learned my lesson quick. I'm a fast learner, fast study.
Damn, that's impressive. Okay, so we need to find a way, we might not do it here, of how do we describe those companies? So we partner with companies who value the well-being of their employees or whatever. Okay. Maybe well-being's not the right word because that can give us other connotations, but we partner with companies who blah. Notice how we're moving away from the template already. So we're not constrained by it, instead to help us. So we partner with companies who value blah. We help them. So what's the benefit of fireproofing people against burnout? What do I actually notice? Because burnout's one of those things where you don't really know. You're like, is it burnout? I'm not sure. It's not always obvious, right?
Well, I can always help you with that as well.
Yeah, I think I burnt out in about 2018, roughly, and still am burnt out. But there we go. We'll talk about that on our call.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that because there's a difference between burnout and run down.
Okay, cool.
So the benefits is that you retain diverse, high-performing talent.
Okay.
Which increases performance and productivity, so you can out-compete your competitors.
So maybe it's as simple as, and we'll do this and I'll move on because we've got a couple of questions, we're nearly out of time. Maybe it's as simple as we partner with companies who value this to protect their performance or their profits or whatever. So this notion of protection, protect their profits, performance, and people, maybe, from the devastating effects of burnout. Using our fireproof method, whatever, something like that, perhaps. It's still a bit too long for me. We need to cut it down.
We'll play around with it in our call. I've definitely booked in, but thank you very much. That helps already.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bees, you're very patient.
No problem. Yeah, so I've got two kind of questions. One is about the naming.
No, I'm joking.
two and one. 1.5. So basically, I'll do my little spiel, which is basically I help large employers to achieve legal compliance in relation to disabled employees and then avoid a potential £4.7 million mistake by training their line managers in the 4 R's of reasonable adjustment. Mm-hmm. Would I then go on and tell them the 4 R's, or would I be like, hey, James, do you want to know about the 4 R's of reasonable adjustment?
I would cut that down first of all. So large employers, I kind of be more specific. So I help companies with 500 or more employees, 10,000, 50 million, whatever. So I help companies with this many employees to avoid hefty legal penalties that come from unknowingly discriminating against disabled people. So to be specific is great in some circumstances, but in others, you're like 4.7. How do you know I'd have to pay 4.7 kind of thing? So hefty is fine. And I think unknowingly, because nobody is running their business thinking, yeah, we don't care about disabled people. We'll just have steps. We don't need ramps, right? It's just they're running their business because they don't even think about it. So they're unknowingly discriminating against disabled people. I would take that kind of an approach. And then the how you do it. So that's it, right? So forget the template for a second. That's it. And then buyers need details, non-buyers want space. So if they're, tell me more. Well, generally there's 4 ways we do that, or 4 common mistakes that we find or whatever. Either you're not even aware of it. You are aware of it, but you don't know what to do. You're aware of it and you're doing stuff, but it's not quite working or whatever. And from that, they should identify one of those things. But I think to actually answer this is, we help companies employ more than 500 people, whatever the number is, to avoid hefty fines from unknowingly discriminating against disabled people. I think if you think about the purpose of what you do is, I need to understand what you actually do. And I'm quite confident from that I would. I don't know about the word hefty. I might jump on thesaurus and change that. But that would be my suggestion along those kind of lines. But it has to feel right to you.
Yeah, and I guess that's the issue. I think a lot of employers don't understand how big the fine is. And the reason I use that number is because that's the largest fine in the last couple of years for NatWest. It was £4.7 million for doing this wrong. And I think that's the problem. That's usually what I'm trying to get across, is that
got you.
For you as an organization, this could be hefty.
So we just need to talk about being big, but not being too specific, because otherwise, if I might be turning over less than that, I think, well, how can I have a fine that's more than my turnover kind of thing? And I'll disconnect from you. So it might sound like you're being too kind of alarmist, because the fine for me might only be 50 grand or 100 grand or 20 pence or whatever. So I would just use the notion of large fines, but unknowingly, because it's not your fault. You don't know. We help you. I work with a company, and I know we're over on time, Shazida, so I'll be quick. I work with a company called Ear Gym. They're a hearing fitness training platform. And for them, one of the parts of their messaging was hearing loss is the biggest problem you've never heard of, pun intended. But it was the way of talking about that, because most people suffer hearing loss. Actually, it's not old people. It's from kind of 30s and onwards. It declines. And we had this illustration of, this is a noisy workplace. So it's like a factory. This is also a noisy workplace. And it was an office and everybody's wearing headphones. So it's readdressing people's understanding of noise and ear health. So there's all sorts of other stuff we can do. But yeah, you've got this issue of, we're bringing a problem to you that you probably don't know you've got, but you absolutely have to solve. And there's probably legal liability there as well, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I had one more question, but I think they've taken their hand down. So please feel free to put your hand back up. If not, I'm going to pass you back over to Shazida, because I'm 2 minutes over time. I'm sorry about that. I'm in no rush if you're not in any rush.
No problem. Thank you everyone for joining us for the final session of module 4. I really enjoy when James does kind of when he actually does his one-to-ones, but in this session.
We'll actually do some work.
Yeah. But if you haven't had the chance and you wanted to have more of a personal one-to-one session, James does have slots available on Accelerator app for one-to-ones. They are going quite quickly. James is very popular, so they are going quite quickly. So please feel free to book a one-to-one. And yes, you can get on with the task as well. You have 2 weeks to complete it as always. And James will be kindly providing some feedback. And the next time I think we'll see each other, it's going to be a while. So I think it's going to be next Friday that we see each other for our next workshop. So you have time. So yes, thank you everyone for coming today. And thank you for all your interactiveness and your questions and for keeping the room alive. And
are you saying I'm boring? No, it's fine. No, I appreciate your interactivity, guys. It really makes a difference. Thank you.
It does. So yes, and we'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.
Very much.
Bye.
Lovely to meet you all. Take care.